without slides, and I'm going to talk about who we are. So, Bank of Montreal. So I'm first going to introduce a couple people from Bank of Montreal who are also with us today, Ken McCrimmon and also Mark Riahajo. So if you have any questions about Bank of Montreal, what we do, you're welcome to ask questions. So we're a Canadian bank. So in Canada, it's a bit different than international and around the world, which is Canada, there's 5 big banks. And basically, all the customers just move from one of those 5 big banks. Although you have smaller banks, typically it's the big 5, and BMO is one of those big 5. So Bank of Montreal, it was formed in Montreal, but we actually are located really in Toronto, most of the team. This is it, yes. Am I okay just to push the button, or is that gonna, yeah. So what I'm gonna talk about is BMO in the banking environment, why DevOps, Agile and DevOps, and our approach. So Bank of Montreal, we are a 200-year-old bank. So Canada, as a country, is 150 years old. So our bank actually, what was before our country, which means you can think about all the legacy stuff we've got. So what's amazing about it is one of the top 5 banks, 12 million customers, 45,000 employees. In technology, there's approximately 3,500 full-time and about an equal amount of contractors in the technology space. So there's about 7,000 or so in the technology area. We're in 5 continents. Our total assets are about $709 billion. As of July. And so I think what's great about it is we've been recognized as one of the best workplaces, one of the top most 100 sustainable corporations. We won the Catalyst Award, which encourages diversity and inclusion. So I think what's great about BMO is lots of diversity, lots going on. Can anyone figure out the challenges of a 200-year-old bank? So it's 200 years old. So someone asked me, do you do mainframe? I'm like, oh, for sure. When I came, I was actually started sort of my younger years at the bank. I came out of school with like C, C++, and the first thing I was put on was the mainframe. So I knew Rex, JCL, DB2 stored procedures, like that's just, and for me it was exciting because when you're young, you're just learning new things. And now I realize how ridiculous that was. So we have, mainframes, we've got Tandem, we've got Solaris. We do have Linux, Unix, Windows, et cetera, but we have a lot of old and new mixed together. We have a 3-tiered architecture, which is supposed to be channels, a middleware, and then a back-end product system. Previous to that, we didn't have a 3-tiered system. What we had was silos. So we had wealth had their own thing, and capital markets had their own thing, and PNC Canada had their own thing. But what that meant is every time we built, everybody built on their own thing. So you can't get omni-channel experience, you can't get core capability, and so you're just struggling as you go along. So we are a legacy bank. What's interesting is if you look at the banking environment, we're switching to digital like everybody else. On the left, there's just, I would say, a view, pictorial of where most of the countries are leading. So the top right is talking about self-serve. A lot of the other countries still are sort of, I'll call it in heavy interaction, branch dependent, or low interaction. Most organizations are going to self-serve capabilities. What's really interesting, it's a really good article to read if you're just sort of curious on data. On the right is customers who experience a branch closure, so a physical location closure, they're still 11% more likely to leave the bank. So even though we're all saying we want digital, you still want a branch there. If you want foreign currency or you want some kind of help, then you still want someone to interact with. So the banking environment is really in an odd spot. Who here would consider themselves a traditional bank? Traditional bank. I would consider myself. Okay, who would consider yourself in a financial industry that's non-traditional? Okay, and why would you say you're non-traditional? I'm going to pick on some people.
Because we're not a bank, but we process financial transactions and we exist only online.
Fair. And what's your company? PayPal. Oh, so you got some PayPal friends over here. PayPal. So I was talking to them. PayPal, about 5 days ago, you did a merger with, or I would say an acquisition with Facebook, where through iMessage, you're going to be able to do payments now. So similar, just for interest sake, in China, they have something called WeChat, which is just like a messaging system where you can do chat and you can add pictures. And in China, you can also send money that way. So I can send money to a group, and I can send lucky money, so like the red envelopes when it's Chinese culture and the Chinese New Year. In 2015, they did 1 billion transactions like that, and they're expecting 8 billion this year. So if you look at where we're going, someone from my team just came back to China, and he said, Angela, I could give you money by just tapping my phone with yours. So forget about PayPal and logging in and doing all that stuff. You're just tapping the phone. So it's hard for us, I'll call it as legacy banks, to compete with you because we call you a disruptor, right? Because you're trying to take our lunch. So who else is from a non-traditional bank?
Well, I'm not from a bank.
Yeah.
So I'm from Encore Capital Group.
Okay.
We do debt collections. And so we know 1 in 4
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So, and we do collections over the web, call center, mail, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we run into all those same problems too.
And did you buy those customers from other financial institutions usually?
So
Yeah.
we know, we work with Citibank, Chase, Cap One, all those major players. They were treated like a bank, but we're not. And so, at some point we'll probably offer credit and do other kind of things. But, we still have a lot of federal regulations, still have to run our own enterprise payment gateways,
Yeah.
still SOX compliant, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's fair. And one more, I saw a hand back there.
Well, we have 7 major lines of business, and our closest competitors are in 2 of those 7. And we have a sort of banking division, but we also have major banks as customers. For instance, our global payments business moves Deutsche Bank's money all around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very unique and wide breadth of financial services.
Yeah, yeah. I think it used to be that people in bank could be very comfortable, that this is our space and no one's going to go somewhere else. And the reality is everybody's going into payments, everybody's going into money transfer. And so the problem is how do you keep current with the industry? So BMO strategic period, why did we change? So I love this quote from Albert Einstein. If you always do what you always did, you will always get what you always got. So for us at BMO, customer experience is at the heart of our strategy. That's how we think we can differentiate ourselves. Quite honestly, we don't have the best interest or mortgage rates, is the truth. And so we've actually tried to differentiate ourselves not by the best rate, but the best customer experience. Customers are faced with compelling value propositions. Pace of innovation is so fast, and we have to get our best return on investment. And so what we found is customers no longer expect the same experience as a USA bank. They expect the same experience as Disneyland or Starbucks. So who's been to Disneyland in the last 3 years? Anyone? Okay, who wants to talk about their experience, their technology experience? Yeah.
So I have a special needs son, and so we get into the front of the line in front of everybody else. And whenever we go around, we have an annual pass, and it's all for our phones, and then they zap us. And then what they did was they put in this new fast pass system that as you walk up, it just reads your phone, it understands why you're there, what you need to do, it understands who your family members in, when you can go to the next ride, things of that nature. And so years ago, I heard they used like a Kanban strategy to try and figure out how to use fast passes, and it's state of the art now. It's great. It's an amazing experience.
Yeah, I think that's what's amazing. And if you look at that experience, that's what people expect from a financial industry, right? From anything that we're doing online, physical presence, and that's hard to keep up with. So from the industry view, I won't go into too much detail. So common concerns are we don't have automated config management, poor test impact analysis, we don't have lean product management, transformational leadership is missing, loosely coupled architecture. So performers versus low performers, and this is from the State of DevOps report, is about we should have 46 times faster code, 440 times faster lead time, 96 times faster recovery, and 5 times lower change failure rate. So have any of your business partners ever seen this? And what do they expect from you? They expect miracles, right? So who's ever been told that you're too expensive? Your work's too expensive, your team's too expensive. Who's ever been told that you're too slow? I don't know, if you haven't been told that, then I want to know where you work, because I'm going to come work there. And I'm not sure, so here's what I'll say. DevOps is not the miracle. You still need time to do things. But I think, for me, DevOps success for me at the Bank of Montreal is, does our technology think that we're efficient? So our business team, in our case, our business team doesn't think we're efficient, and our technology team doesn't think we're efficient. And most of the technology team who thinks we're inefficient, it's not my problem, but because you have 6 different or 10 different groups you got to talk to, it's their problem. To me, DevOps is all about automating that full value chain end to end and figuring out ways to reduce the manual work and increase the efficiencies and increase quality. So for Canadian FIs, financial institutes, common concerns are SaaS and PaaS versus in-house. We've got a lot of build capabilities, our time to market, our IT run costs, and cloud adoption. Because of our sensitive customer data, even the Equifax report doesn't help us, that issue, because people in the organization, either legal or our sourcing team and our risk team are like, see, you can't put your data on the cloud because it's not safe. So our challenges become how do you actually get to cloud and how do you even get approval to go there? Our impediments blocking are we have a lot of technical debt. So to me, there's 2 categories of technical debt. Technical debt can be, I tactically chose to make this architectural decision because I need to make my timeline and it's completely wrong for the organization. So you've chosen it on the back of a project and now you feel that pain. Other technical debt is like a legacy organization. We still have our mainframe. Our original DDA accounting system is the same one today as it started 50 years ago, because IT in the bank started about 50 years ago. And then we just kept building it. We just kept adding arms to it of different capabilities. Resources, skills. So I think every organization has some amazing resources and skills who know this stuff and want to drive change. And then you have other people in the organization who just do not want it. They're either scared of the change, they're concerned about job stability, or they don't understand the change. So I think with DevOps, what we found is we have now become marketing professionals. So I used to think it was as simple as, this is the practice. These are the tools. It's not like, to me, it just seems odd to me that if I was a coder, I don't want to manually deploy my code. I don't want to manually create a Word document to tell you how to do it. Why wouldn't I automate the script and just have the control myself and get it done with? But I realized very quickly that some people have a different approach and a thinking style. And so I underestimated the importance of culture and cultural change and literally marketing. So you should see, Mark and Ken can talk about all our stuff. We do like website articles, we do videos. We go to every town hall that we can to talk about DevOps because there's so much opposition to change that we have actually no choice to do it. Everybody wants to change, but do they actually want to do something to change is the question. Infrastructure, we have a lot of legacy old infrastructure. This year, we put our first application on the cloud. Just so you know the context of where we are, and that was email. So we're not, thank you. So we're not talking about rocket science of what we're doing. We're a very risk-averse organization. You know, I personally meet with the OCC, which is the US regulators, every quarter to talk about what we're doing and how we're doing it, and they consistently ask me, what are you doing with the cloud and why? So there's a lot of regulations around us. What's interesting is my view is, I actually think the cloud is probably safer than probably our own internal organization. That's my view. But convincing others of that is the challenge. Internal software delivery processes were slow. We have at least, if you put a change into production, you're talking about at least 8 to 10 systems doing that change. Because we've compartmentalized so that we have shared services, but we have a channels layer, a channel services layer, an enterprise business service layer. Then we have a middleware layer that can be made up of 1 to 8 different systems, and then you have a product system. In the product systems, you'll have an accounting system, and a loan system, and an adjudication system. So it's a complex environment about how all those things come together. And then we have a lot of highly coupled application architecture plus internal practices, which really cause delays. So for us, this is, I'll call it my marketing slide. This is what I use at the organization, which is we're trying to increase quality early in the SDLC to avoid the impact at the production stage. So part of this is a lot of our issues are found in the testing cycle, which is mostly manual testing right now at the bank, or in production. So we're trying to pitch, you know, you don't need a big testing team, because if you do proper dev unit testing, test-driven development, you can dramatically reduce the churn in the cycle time and also increase quality. But our opposition would be from development, I'm not even giving enough time to code. So if you give me enough time to code and do dev unit testing, and you don't need so much time for testing, then I'll do that. But then it becomes the chicken and the egg, because QA won't reduce their time frame because they don't trust development. Development can't do it in the right time and give the high quality, so it's this perpetual motion of a lack of partnership, I'll call it. And so it's hard to get people into the same room and say, I get you're changing and I'm changing too, and how can we work as a team to make this different? So our approach, we very much have an approach of, I'm going to call it marketing, but also hands-on, just rolling up your sleeves and dirty work. So we've actually tried to focus on both executive support and also working team support. So I'll talk for a minute about the working team support. So for working team support, so how it works is me and my team, we own the framework for DevOps, Agile, SDLC. We also own all non-production, all testing, and IT governance. There are other, we call them CIO teams that own the physical development. So there are 7 different teams that do development that they have to use our frameworks. And what we've done is, from each of those development teams, we've tried to get ambassadors. So we did a lot of marketing and sales. We found those people in the team who actually wanted change. And truthfully, often they're the people who came in new from another organization. They typically, most people were at the bank for less than 5 years, but they were our ambassadors. So we said, okay, that's great, you're doing it. So instead of me telling you we should do it and Mark telling you we should do it, They actually have people in their team that they trust and know what they're doing to try to convince them that it makes sense. And then we had some proof points that we said, see, it makes sense, and it's not hurting you, and it's practical. And I think there was a lot of discussion there. From a technology executive perspective, a lot of technology executives were focused on just get my project out. I am rated and my performance is managed based on me getting my project out. And if you're asking me to be a month slower because I have to create my CI/CD pipeline and then to go faster, they struggle with that. That was a challenge. Originally, we did not have the business buy-in. So originally, we started about 1.5 years ago. Our focus was on technology. Then very quickly, we found, once we got the technology team on side, the business team was the team saying, you can't do that. So I had some chats with our business partners, and they said, we're not letting them do dev unit testing. And I said, why would you do it? They said, well, we're a bank. You're always going to test it anyways, Angela, so there's no point on doing dev unit testing. Because they saw them as you're doing all this dev unit testing or all this integration testing. They didn't see the pipeline of quality. And so there's been a lot of discussions on what that means, what it looks like. We're now getting our business partners to own the dashboard of how DevOps is actually enabled in their projects. But that was a challenge. I'm not sure, Mark or Ken, do you guys want to add some flavor? Happy for your feedback.
I think the business sees the values now, but they wants to go faster in some respects, right?
Yeah.
They have, you've done your marketing well.
Yeah.
They see it as,
yeah.
hey, we can go faster, but almost to the point where we're not, we're running to catch up now.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Yeah, and so that we wanted that healthy pressure, because truth be told, I wasn't seeing enough fast work in technology. So I actually forced the pressure from all sides is the truth. That was actually strategic, believe it or not. But it puts pressure on the development teams, right? And Mark, do you have anything?
We use an analogy with the credit card. Before the business partners never saw the credit card bill with the interest they were paying on the decisions they were making for projects. Part of this work now is not only you're seeing the payment you're making to the technology, but you're also seeing the interest. So we make explicit decisions on direction with technology now. If you don't adopt DevOps, automated testing, automated deployments, source code management, whatever it is, then this is the cost to you for your pace of delivery, because that's their number one priority. You got to make it their pain. They have to understand that they need to change their behavior to support the team that they need to, who's doing the work for them.
Yeah.
It's funny, your model is exactly the same as our model.
Yeah.
The opposite is also true. The leadership bought right in without really knowledge or insight as to what they were buying into. It was very fashionable.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, they just expected things would just accelerate
Yeah.
the project. So
Yeah.
they started slashing timelines and budgets. So because you're automating
Yes.
testing, which we
You're
all
good.
think is the right thing to do,
Yeah.
we cut that down to like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, we're kind of in the investment phase right now.
Yeah.
Tooling phase. The model, I like where it's bootstrapping is what we call it, but if you don't own the outcome of the application, it's just so hard. If you're a consultant,
It's
on
hard.
one thing, you're wares, and
Yeah.
you really have to have some skin in the game, and so that's what we did. We said, my team, my engineers will own this, and there's
Yeah.
sales, we own the value.
Yeah.
So good, it's risk-free now, a developer
Yeah.
is a lot more willing to take a chance and do
Yeah.
something because we'll be
Sure.
trained and we'll have a little cover.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's a tough model, it's a tough sell.
It is.
Question for your comment. Make sure I understood. Did you mean the impact to them from the standpoint of they have to actually pay for the support engagement if there are issues? Or in our model, the cost of delaying not releasing something fast. So if I use the example of automated testing and the pay, there's a cost to implement those first regression test packages. If we can't afford that, to do that as part of the project, and we want to do it manually because we think it's faster for this one iteration, then every iteration after that, we make that explicit calculation to tell them, every time you do it manually, this is the cost to your team. If we make this investment up front. So it's justify the automation versus the. We've got one great example. We used to do a regression test package manually for one platform. Took 2 people 12 days manually, 6 days manually to do it, so 12-day work effort. It was 30 days to automate that regression test package, but now they run it every night after their final build of the day. So every day they get a measure of quality, and so the final output for them, well, it was a 30-day investment up front. They run it every
think I'm talking loud enough, but I can use a microphone, yeah.
So that's all connected, but it's being recorded.
Okay.
Oh,
That
okay.
way, so that,
Yeah.
because this is such a big part of the presentation, so it's better that everybody, yeah.
That's fair.
I hope I answered your question.
Any more questions on, I'll call it buy-in? So I put that as number 1 because I think that's important. Number 2 is practice and support. So often people see DevOps as the tools. Just give me the tools and I'm going to do it. So we found a lot of, so truthfully, I was one of those people. I was like, just give me the tools, I'm going to do it. What I found very quickly was, I'll use source control as an example. So we have a number of source controls at the bank. I will not tell you the number. We have a number of distributed. We have one mainframe. So we're not going to touch the mainframe source control, but we're trying to push all distributed to one platform. I thought it was just a matter of getting rid of PVCS and visual source control. I thought it was just a matter of getting rid of those. What we found is the development practices around branching your code, packaging your code, how you build your code, and how long that takes was actually the hard part. Because it wasn't just a tool port. It was, what are your practices around how you do that? And Mark and I were chatting this morning, and he's like, I think that was our biggest benefit. Like, that's actually the key. And in our case, our audit team was encouraging us to do that, so it gave us an extra push as an organization. But I think part of that is we underestimated the importance of practice and support. So what we actually ended up building up was, I have 2 things. We have account managers, which are forward deployed to support all those coding areas. So wealth, personal and commercial Canada, capital markets. I have someone in my team who actually goes to them and says, what's working, what's not, what do you need, are you getting the support you need? We also have the concept of DevOps coaches. So the coaches have morphed. So at the beginning, we had coaches who went in and showed teams how to do it. But what we found was very quickly, the teams made them fingers to keyboard do the work, and then they couldn't leave the team because the team didn't want to do it. And so then we stopped that model. We said, no, coaches, you're not allowed to touch the keyboard. Our coaches are, I'll call it the pink unicorn because they're very hard to find. They have to have technology understanding of both CI and CD, the whole chain, but they have to also be ambassadors and have the right attitude, which is, that whole combination is very hard to get. But we have a team of actually 12 DevOps coaches that actually support the organization. So they're forward deployed. So they do boot camps for different CIOs teams. Ken's team just went through a boot camp. First, our boot camps were 1 week straight of all CI/CD. And then people couldn't commit to it, and then they'd have to leave for project issues, and we couldn't stop that. Then we did, I think it's now an 8-week process where you have to go for 3 hours a week, that you have to go. And the benefit of that is we're actually asking them to take their own code and create their own CI and CD pipeline in the course. So it's not just a course that's like, go and take this, create hello world, and go do something with it. You actually have to bring your own code in. You got to start to refactor a little bit of your own code. You then have to actually put fingers to keyboards so that when you leave the course, you should have something to start with. What we found was some teams committed, some teams didn't. And in the end, what happens now, if someone doesn't participate fully, it gets escalated to me, and then I talk to their leader. And I say, you know what, I've paid for this for your team. It's free training to you, and I can't continue to do that if this happens. And so it's become a stick a little bit, as much as it should be a carrot. And I'm like, there's half the team who want to learn and half the team who want to change. And the other people, their manager has forced them there. If you want organizational change, I think you have to take both. So you're going to have to take both. And sometimes, I've heard people say in a whole organization, 1/3 of your team will hear the new stuff and say, yes, I'm going to do it. The next third is like, nope, you show me that it's really going to stick and it's going to stay, and then we'll do it. And then another third may never get there. And so part of it is you got to figure out how you engage at least the 2/3 of the workforce to make sure you can drive delivery. We also have the idea of, I'll call it, the dojo concept is on purpose. So it's about, the servant master. We have open house. We had a Star Wars open house on May the 4th. So May the 4th be with you. We've done like all these crazy things just to get people to come and learn about what it is. Because I think part of our challenge was fear. People were afraid they're going to lose their job because they're automating themselves out of a job. People are afraid of what others will think of them, that they're not technically strong because they can't figure it out. So the question was, how do we wrap ourselves around them that they don't feel dumb or feel like an idiot, that if we give them the training, they're actually going to know how to use the tooling and the capabilities. And we've also started things, we have Yammer in our organization, and so we started forums that it's not just my team that's answering, but we're trying to create the community. And we're trying to showcase the ambassadors and say, don't come and ask me, ask these guys that are beside you in your team. Because sometimes in technology, often technology personalities aren't marketers, right? People like to sit and they like to focus on their work. But in this case, we're asking them to showcase themselves and showcase their work, and we found that really hard. So as much as we could do that, that benefited the team. Next one was tool selection. So if I talk about our CI pipeline, so we are mostly using Atlassian. So for knowledge management, it's Jira Confluence. For source control, it's Git Bitbucket. We're using Bamboo for integration. We're using Artifactory for our DML. We're using SonarQube for our dev unit testing and code coverage. From our delivery perspective, we're using Elastic in terms of, I'll call it reactive logging and alerting. We're using Ansible for our application automated deployment. We have not chosen our database automation deployment tool yet. So if anyone has any good examples here, we're still looking at them. Talk to Mark. Mark's looking at that. What do you use?
So for our database automation release, we wrote our own Jenkins plugins. And
Oh, okay.
So we actually wrote, so we do our, so I don't know if this gives away my age, but so I did RPG back in the day.
Yeah.
And so we wrote our own RPG plugins, so we could release 80 RPG programs in about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
But we also wrote our own DB2 plugins that we released, DB2, DDL, and things like that. And it's open source. We'll give it to you if you want.
Okay.
We're also moving over to VSTS, and so we're looking in.
VSTS,
Yeah.
But not for database automation. You're using that for database automation?
So we're looking into trying to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, to release all of our scripts and stuff like that. So
Okay.
yeah, we'll talk about it. I mean, we're still in our early phases, but yeah, I'd love to partner.
Okay, that's great. And then we're also doing Docker OpenShift. So we started around containers. We're a heavy virtual machine environment. So we're moving to containers. We had looked at lots of different things. In the end, we've gone with OpenShift and Docker. And we just did our first production deployment this year, which is a big deal for us. So again, I know it might seem simple for many of you who are far beyond us. But for us, it was a big deal for us to get our development teams to understand how to use it, and our DevOps team, and our operations team. And then it actually went to production, and it worked. And for whatever reason, our team chose the most critical payments hub at the bank. And we did it, and I laughed a little bit because they didn't tell me when it was going in. On the Monday, they go, you know what went in? And I'm like, you should have told me, but it was great. It was nice, it was quiet, and it was beautiful. And then also application enablement with metrics. So here becomes the trick. You had talked about doing value. And so with application enablement, you can have the most awesome framework. If no one enables their application, you just won't get there. So for us, you have to enable the application. Your application then benefits multiple projects that year with their changing. Metrics has been a bit of a bone of contention, only because I've been given some money to help with capability, and I have to show value. Some core practitioners say, Angela, just show the practices and it will come and you'll see the value, but you still have to measure it. So because we have all those tools on the left, most people aren't taking the whole chain and saying, I'm doing CI and CD. What they're doing is they'll say, okay, I'm going to try Ansible, or I'm going to try Git. So they're not doing the whole value chain. So to measure that's tricky because you can't even measure MTTR or deliver pace. So those are some of the challenges we're working on. If anyone has some good solutions, we're happy to hear that. The last thing, just because I'm down to my last couple minutes, is can Agile and DevOps be done separately? So I want to talk a little bit about how we do it. So Mark from the team also leads Agile. Agile allows you to manage changing priorities, increase team productivity, improve project visibility. DevOps only improves productivity by automating technology processes. So how we've done it at the Bank of Montreal is DevOps is for everybody. I don't care if you're waterfall, iterative, or agile. Taking something that's manual and automating it is just a logical thing to do, so we should do it. Now with Agile, though, you'll get better benefits. So I think Agile and DevOps, we have about 400 projects running at the bank. We have 8 Agile initiatives. So we are pushing the envelope for us, which is still pushing the envelope. And I say that we've seen huge value in terms of how those have come together. The last thing I'll say is this isn't an easy journey. It is really hard. So if you're just starting out, don't negate how hard this is. Culturally, from a practice perspective, from resources, they're concerned about job loss. So you have to look about all those things and how they come together. And so I'll be around, and Mark and Ken are around if you have any questions, because I think we're out of time. Is that true?